Hi, and welcome to Dicer. Today, we'll be learning about the Dicer flow. So let's get started. In order to fully understand how to build strategies in the Dicer platform, it is important to first understand how the flow of operation works within Dicer. We like to call this the Dicer flow. The Dicer flow is a series of steps that the software follows for every single roll that is made while evaluating your strategy. As it turns out, there are only 3 steps, and every one of those steps are very similar to what you would experience for every roll in an actual craps game. The first step that is performed is to place bets. This step is evaluated before the roll occurs and is typically the point where you would place your bets before a roll is made. After the roll occurs, the next step is to check bets. At this point, all of your bets are checked to see if they win or lose. In an actual game, this would be done by the dealers, where they may remove your bets or pay you depending on whether you win or lose. This is then immediately followed by the next step called the bet actions step, where you will then perform certain actions on each bet based on the results of the check bet step. This is typically used to perform actions on any active bet, such as pressing, hedging, or taking down that bet. The cycle then repeats for every roll that occurs within your game session. It would also be during this transition where a puck may change from the off state to a point, or vice versa. Let's walk through this flow by looking at a real example. To follow along with this video, you can go to the following URL, which is a strategy that plays an iron cross with some additional bets. When you start a new game, you will always begin with the place bet step. When we are in this step, it is important to note that only the blocks inside the relevant event blocks are evaluated. Since we are starting out before the first roll of the come out state, we will start by evaluating the blocks inside the first event block. It is important to note that these blocks are only evaluated once. In this case, we are just initializing some variables to their initial values. For the any event, these blocks are always evaluated regardless of the game state being in point or come out. Because of this, these blocks will also be evaluated, which simply places 2 bets, $5 on the hard 6 and $5 on the hard 8. We now will move on to the come out event block, which simply places $15 on the pass line. You may notice that the next block is an if statement checking to see if we have seen a 7 out in our session. Since we are still before our first roll has occurred, this will be false, so no yo bet for now. The last event block is the point event block. Since we are in the come out event, no blocks inside this event block will be processed. We now have all of our bets placed, which you can see if you look at the simulator before any rolls have been made. Let us now imagine that we roll a hard 8 in the come out state. After the roll occurs and the puck moves to the 8 point, our next step is to check bets. For this step, we will check each bet block to see if they have won or lost. The first bet is the hard 6, which does not change and remains active. We then move on to the hard 8 bet, which did win $45. The pass line bet does not win or lose, but does become an active contract bet. As for the yo, it was never bet, so this block is skipped. As for the other bets in the point event block, since we are still in the check bets step and they have not yet been bet, these will also not be checked. It is important to note, however, that they will be processed eventually when we get back to the place bet step. We will now move to the next step in the flow, which is the bet action step. For this step, we will evaluate all the blocks that are found within every active bet block. The first one is the if statement inside of the hard 6. This bet did not lose, but it also did not win, so this check is false and the block inside is skipped. The hard 8, however, did just win, so this will evaluate to true. This means that the next block to process is the block to press this bet by $5. As for the if block inside the field bet, since this bet has not yet been placed and is not active, this block will not be evaluated. We are now ready to move on to the next part of the flow, which will move the puck to the 8 point and then repeat the process back at the place bet step. For the first roll event, since these blocks are only evaluated before the first roll, these blocks will not be evaluated again. Since the any event applies to both the come out and point events, both the hard 6 and the hard 8 bets will be placed again. If they are already placed, then a bet block will simply ensure that the bet exists. For the hard 8, we already increased it to $10, which can be considered as an override until the bet loses and is reset. Since we are no longer in the come out state, none of these blocks will be processed. But considering that the pass line bet has already been bet, it will be considered active until it loses. We can now move over to the point event block, where the inside blocks will now be processed starting with the field bet, followed by the 5, 6, and 8 bets. If we take a look at the simulation, everything we just went through is processed through a single roll, which can be seen as follows. We are now ready for our next roll. Let's walk through the flow again, but this time with a 6, 4, or easy 10 rolled. Since we have already completed our place bets steps, we are now ready to check all of the current bets. Since the check bets step checks all of the active bets, we will start by looking at the hard ways bets we have in place. Both of these bets have not changed for this roll. Same goes for our pass line bet. The field will win $15 and the 5, 6, and 8 will also not change. Now that the bets have been checked, we will now perform our bet actions. Since the hard ways bets did not win, the if statement within them is going to be false, which will do nothing to those bets. Now, looking at the bet action blocks inside the field bet, we can see that the if statement will be true since the field just won, which in this case will press the 5, 6, and 8 bets by a single unit. With the bet actions complete, we can now circle back to the place bets state, where we will place all bets for the current state that we are in. The hard ways bets will be evaluated again, but considering they are already bet, this will just ensure they are placed. Also, remember that for the hard 8 bet, this value was overridden by our previous press action. We will then move on to the bets within the point event block, where we will ensure our bets for the field, 5, 6, and 8. We are now ready for our next roll. For our next roll, let's see what a 7-out scenario would look like. Since our bets have already been placed from the last process, we can now proceed to the check bet step, where we will reconcile all of our bets for this unfortunate roll. Starting with the hard ways bets, we can see that we will lose $5 for the hard 6 and $10 for the hard 8, since it was pressed from a previous step. Our pass line bet also loses, as well as our field and the pressed 5, 6, and 8 bets. Even if our roll is a losing roll, we will still carry on with our next step in our process, which is to process the bet actions step. Since our hard ways bets both lose, we can easily see that these if conditions both resolve to false, which means the actions are skipped. The same goes for the if conditional within the field bet, since it is checking if the bet did win instead of did lose. From this point, we will now move the puck to the off position, and our process will now repeat starting with the place bet step. It is important to note that when any bet loses, the stored value and state of that bet is reset to the original state as if nothing ever happened. With this information, we can now walk through the place bet step again and rebet any bets that were lost in the previous round. To start, we will place both our hard ways bets for $5. Again, the hard 8 was reset, so its value goes back down to $5. We will also place $15 on the pass line bet. As for the if condition within the come out event, since our last state was a 7-out, this will resolve to true, and we'll now place a yo bet for $5. We can see what this looks like by simulating our 7-out roll in our craps simulator. As you can see, once the 7 is rolled, all bets lose, but they are placed again with one additional bet, $5 on the yo. Now that we have walked through a few rolls, the real fun starts when you press the simulate button. As you can see, we are going to have a fun weekend. We hope this video is useful and also hope that you're enjoying your experience with Dicer. Please stay tuned for our next exciting Dicer video. As always, please like this video and subscribe to this channel so that we can produce more strategy videos like this one. Thank you for watching.